Yeah, man. You look like you lost a shitload of weight, Jay.
I don't know, but I mean, it's probably the beard gone.
No, seriously, you do. You look well.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. I've been running every day. I'm fucking suffering from my heart. But I need to cut down on my crap, mate. I just eat loads of rubbish. So I need to cut down because we had like Alison had a nutritionist, paddock. Nothing to do with us for that football team. And Joe was chatting to me that, and I was sort of chatting as well. And he was saying, like, a lot of it's just cutting down on so many calories because I just eat chocolate and crap all the time. And like, even if you go running every day, you're not going to lose much if you just constantly eating shit. And I am.
Yeah.
I snack.
It's more about more about what you put in than what you fucking running it off and stuff like that.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. And also the camera angles have got on point. I've learned how to get the right camera angle after many years of doing these videos. Learned the hard way.
I remember my first appearance on Full Time Devils, and the first comment that came up when I was on there, who's the fat lad in the pink? I was like, fucking hell, that was like a kick up the ass. I've lost at least 2.5 stone since then. Like, you're like fucking
fat lad. I've never been at anything of you, but like,
it has, mate.
They're all like the comments can be brutal, mate. I remember like when I went there full time, McCall was on holiday, and I did the transfer daily thing, and it's live, so the chat's live. And before I even spoke, right, there was about 10 comments. Who the fuck is this? Who is he? Get him off.
Yeah.
Get McCall back on. Where's McCall? Who's this loser? I've not even opened my mouth, right? And like, people had already seen me in the comments straight away. They'd be like, I was like, oh my God. Anyway, I did it all week, right? I was doing it because I had to do it every day for a week. And every day you get the same comments. So I start the video by saying, it's Jay, full-time Devils. Don't worry, Adam McCall is going to be back on Monday. He's on his holes at the minute. I'm here with the transfer dailies, right? And then I was getting comments like, why does this guy keep going on about Adam McCall? Stop being so insecure.
Can't fucking win.
You know what I mean? And the others are saying, where's Adam McCall? So like, you know what I mean? It's like even when I cut my beard off, people say you look much better with your beard. And I've had comments, why have you shaved your beard? Or you look like a dickhead. I'm like, do you know what? I'm done. Honestly,
you can't pander to everybody, Jay. You wouldn't have Piers Morgan doing fucking Good Morning Breakfast and have the rotating comments below him, everyone slagging him off while he's trying to do a live show.
I just focus on the positive. I'm one of them, me. When I'm on like the YouTube channel, I just focus on the positive ones and like them all and reply.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate you. Like, you know what I mean? People who are just nasty, I just ignore them, man. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. But yeah.
Oh man, so we're gonna finally do it tonight. This is Scotty and Motty, the best series of all time. Well, it is tonight because we're going to be doing the top 5 characters of the Sopranos. Where do we start with the Sopranos? How long? It's been 20 years, is it now since it started in 99?
Yeah, mad. Is that when it was? Is that when it started? 99.
Yeah,
know that really, being a massive Sopranos fan. But yeah, it's mad to think that, innit? Because listen, it changed television, didn't it? It's just something else.
Yeah.
That
was when the long form sort of TV series that brought the mold for it, didn't you? And you've seen a lot more sort of Hollywood actors go into these sort of long term, and Netflix boomed off the back of just off the like. But yeah, nothing has surpassed it for characters, for storylines. It's for the way it's written. David Chase, fucking phenomenal. Probably only David Simon, I'd say, who's on a par for obviously writing The Wire. We'll have to get to The Wire at some point. But tonight we're going to be talking about our top 5 characters from The Sopranos. Jay, do you want to kick off tonight?
Thank you, mate. I mean, like you said there, long form. The good thing about The Sopranos is the characters, they come, and a lot of them, they start one way, and then they change. They have a real arc. You see them go through. I mean, they don't change dramatically, but you see them going through certain things. You see them develop. It's not just one of those shows where a character, although you get characters that are in it fleetingly, where you get main characters who come in for 3 or 4 episodes, you don't see them again. You've got characters who go through sort of 2 or 3 series, and they change, and they go, they sort of, their role in the family, the mafia, whatever changes, or their family life changes, or we get to see different sides to them. And that's what The Sopranos does really well. And I thought a good one to start with is someone who has a real arc, who sort of starts off. He comes in series 2, I think, beginning of series 2, and he's almost like a figure of fun and someone who's ridiculed constantly, and he's on the fringes almost of the Soprano family. And then by the time the series ends, and I don't think I'm giving away any plot spoilers here, and he dies, there's a real sense of loss. He's one of the characters that you got in when he dies. The tension, his death scene is amazing, the tension that builds. And I'm talking, of course, of Bobby Baccalieri, who is just one of the most fascinating characters in TV. He really is. Played by, and forgive my pronunciation, Steve Schirripa, who's a great actor, great in this role. And the thing with Bobby is he's a bit of a contradiction to some of the other Sopranos characters in that he's in the Mafia, obviously. He's in the Sopranos. He's in Junior's crew, and he's the only one of Junior's crew that survives the war at the end of the first one. And he's very much family orientated. The sort of there's the joke that he's the only one who doesn't have a gumar. Very loyal to his wife, loves his kids. And you can say that about Tony, you can say that about anyone else, but he's more hands-on. He's more of a family man. He does a lot of stuff with his kids. He loves his wife, like, genuinely. He doesn't cheat on her. He doesn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
And when she dies, he's devastated. And it's like, you see him really going through the emotions. And that's why Steve Shapiro is such a good actor as well, because he conveys that so brilliantly. And then we see him sort of get closer to Tony. Obviously, he marries Tony's sister, which helps him. He's given more and more tasks to do. He's always proven his loyalty. He always tries to please Tony and do the best he can. And he's a sort of softer character. He's not, although he does commit murder in the end, which is more or less Tony making him do a murder as revenge after he gets into a drunken fight with Tony.
Yeah.
But he's not like a cold-hearted killer. He's not one of those. He cries a lot. He wears his heart on his sleeve. As I said before, he's very emotional, very family man. He's into his train sets, and not, which is a bit odd that you've got this guy who, as I said earlier, has killed people and is part of the mafia and becomes a sort of number 3 or something in the Sopranos family. Yeah, he'll go home and put a hat on and do his train sets around his garage like he's a sort of 15-year-old boy from the 30s or something. It's just a bit bizarre. And he has that sort of that side to him, and he's almost a little bit of a henpecked husband when he marries Janice. She sort of she, I wouldn't say bullies him, but she's quite domineering. She's like the sort of the dominant one in that relationship. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. She's like always chastising him a lot, makes him do certain things, and she helps him in a way, sort of progress up the Sopranos family ladder. I think he does marry her, doesn't he? I can't remember seeing it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, the thing is, Bobby was coming off the back of a hell of a lot of strong previous partners of Janice. So I think it was about time that Janice thought, she was always a feisty character.
I'm not sure if they did actually get married. I think they just sort of they got together, didn't they? And they had the little girl together. But like you said, Janice, she went out with Ralph. She went out with Richie
Aprile,
killed him. One of my favorite scenes after she's killed him. Tony disposed of the body. And Janice says, "Can you just ask what you did with him?" And he says, "Yeah, we buried him next to a brook, near a tree." And she says, "Did you?" And he goes, "No."
The dynamics between Janice and Tony, we'll talk about it later on, but yeah, it's fucking
my favorite as well. My favorite scene, it's got Bobby in it and it's got Janice in it, and it's one of my favorite scenes of television, of any television show ever. And Janice has beat up her mum at school. She's sort of become the mother role. She's become the stepmom to Bobby's kids, and she's gone to watch one of them play soccer, as the Americans call it. Got into a row with a rival mum and ended up fighting with her and beating her up. So she gets sent on anger management. And Tony goes around for Sunday dinner and the anger management's working. She gets like a cold call about telesales and she's dead calm. And she's like, "Oh, please, no, we're not interested in this." And Tony's like, "Just hang up, tell him to get on the phone." And she's like, "No, it's all right." She's dead calm. And you can see Tony's a bit like, "Oh, she's really changed." And then It's just got that thing about him and her. They're always arguing. You can see sort of that he's sitting down to dinner. It's a nice family dinner, and then he starts winding her up about a son that she doesn't see anymore. You know, wonder what Harpo's having for dinner and all this, and you know, wonder what French is for. I grew up without a mum. You know, where is my mama? And she snapped. And what I love about this is she snaps and she jumps up and she goes for him with a knife or whatever it is, or a fork. And he jumps up and he puts the chair in between him and her and then hides behind Bobby. And she's going for him. And it's just like, you've got this mafia guy running away from his sister in the kitchen and she goes for him with a fork or whatever in front of the kids. And she's screaming, I hate you and all this. And he's sort of smirking to himself. And it's just hilarious. And it just sort of sums it up as well with Bobby because he's in the middle of this. And he's trying to be a loyal husband or partner to his wife. I can't remember if they're married or not, to his partner. And then obviously Tony's his boss and he's trying to do right by him. And he's always conflicting. You feel a little bit sorry for Bobby. But ultimately, you know, like I said, he does end up getting involved in the war at the end of The Sopranos and with the Leotardo crew. And he's one of the ones that dies. And it's such a sort of a suspenseful moment when you can see the killers have come for him and he's going to look at a train set and the way that tension builds with the train and everything. It's one of the superbly filmed scene. And there's a real sense of loss with some of the characters in Sopranos. You sort of get the sense
you see it coming, don't you? Because you know the expected fade, didn't you? But yeah, I mean, when you knew that was going to be the last season of Sopranos, and you expected there was going to be a big shoot off and stuff, I didn't expect Bobby to go at all. I just didn't see that. I thought, you know, he'd be the one to be 70 years old playing with his trains in his loft. Great character.
It is, and like obviously the relationship with Junior as well, because obviously for the first couple of series, he's sort of Junior's almost his nurse, for want of a better word. He just sort of does all his errands and looks after him, and he reveres Junior as well, doesn't he? He sort of looks up to him, and he says at one point, "I'm in awe of you," and he learns a lot from Junior. But those two have a sort of close relationship. And there's real elements of comedy there with those two. And again, you see the way that Junior talks to him. Yeah, he's another one. He's always putting him down. He's always shouting at him. But he is a little bit downtrodden, Bobby Baccalieri. But it just shows you that these characters aren't all one-dimensional. They're not all like, okay, this is a mafia man, so he's he's a cold-blooded killer. He's angry all the time. He's he cheats on his wife. He can't be trusted. Bobby's not like that. He's a genuinely nice guy. Yet he is, a major capo or a major figure in a mafia family, and that's what makes Sopranos so brilliant, because you see both sides to these characters, and it never feels false. It doesn't feel like it
doesn't feel like we need to throw a quirk on here on this person just to give it a little bit more of an edge. The dynamics between Junior and Bobby, I always thought. Have you seen the film The Odd Couple? Yes. I think it's Jack Lemmon. It's very similar in that the sort of the way they sort of play off each other and stuff. And obviously, Junior sort of talks down to Bobby. I've just really enjoyed that relationship. But yeah, great shout and a great character. My first one I'm going to go for is probably my favorite character in all of TV series outside of McNulty, and it's probably. This character was my very first Twitter handle was at Moltisanti when Twitter was in its infancy. I wish I'd kept that, to be absolutely honest with you. Wow. But you're talking earlier on about character arcs, and I just think the journey that Christopher goes on all the way through it is I don't think anyone goes on a journey as much, because he starts off the beginning of The Sopranos and the first season. And he's very there's something very millennial about Christopher Moltisanti's character, in that he expects that he deserves everything without actually putting in any effort. Do you know what I mean? He expects that he should be given just by the naming rights, that he should be a made man. And I thought it was a brilliant when just to epitomize this is when Brendan Falone gets killed, and then it comes on the TV saying Brendan Falone, and then he's actually jealous of his dead mate because he's got the news reporters going on about his dead mate Brendan Falone, and then he goes into the bakery and he shoots the baker, doesn't he?
Oh, and it's very yeah, he does. Oh. And it's sorry to interrupt you, mate. Sorry, no. Yeah, he shoots him in the foot, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's a nod to the god. It's a good nod to his character Spider in Goodfellas.
And there's also well, he was in the queue who he tells to leave.
Yeah, it's not. Is it Pussy? It's not Pussy. It's the guy who comes out as it's the gay character. Vito, yeah, because Vito just plays a bit part, don't he, and come back. I noticed that. But Chris has always been. I think sometimes when you're watching these films, is that you attach similar traits, or you see yourself in certain people. And The Sopranos, to me, I think I spoke about this before. As much as it was a mafia film, because of the sort of the extra layers that every character got, it was more sort of a family dynamics. And you could just look at the mafia as a job, and then like these people were just sort of like the family affairs and how they sort of dealt with society within their circle of friends. And there's a great quote where he goes, other people's definitions of you, sometimes they're more about making themselves better. You've got to define yourself. And Christopher's arc is always he tries to define himself, but he's never allowed to because of the dynamics with Tony. You see that when he's trying to move out, trying to be a writer and all that himself, and he's not allowed to sort of see that ambition. Obviously, he's falling to drink and drugs. But he's the only character. There's so much about him. There's like you're either sympathetic towards him. He's a fucking idiot. He's either hilarious. You have empathy with him in certain scenes. And that can go in just one episode. He has such a roller coaster of emotions all the way through it. And I was trying. One of my favorite ones is D-Girl, when Jon Favreau makes a cameo. I think it's season 3, where some girls, one of his mate's cousins, works in Hollywood, and she steals his script, doesn't she? And he thinks he's going to get in there with Jon Favreau, and then she just burns his bridges. And I think that's the end of his artistic career. But he has his end away with her. And of course, he's got one of the most beautiful women in TV in Andrea Di Matteo, hasn't he? Really? And then but then the ending is the dream sequence as well, where it's where he's in purgatory and he's walking around the butchers, and he keeps going in back and forth to get the meat. And and then the death as well of Christopher. See, I didn't realize this until I was looking back up, doing research, because I knew we were doing the podcast. I don't think I've seen that episode too many times. Now, I thought because he had the car crash that Tony had killed him because he was on his way out. Because I thought he was that badly ruined that was it.
No.
But from reading around, I read a David Chase interview today, and he was saying that you could see the tree had gone through the window and it had gone through the car seat, and that's because Christopher was high. And this is post him killing his missus being killed, which is, it's a heartbreaking scene, but you sort of feel like he's going to get back on, and he slips off the wagon again, and then it just like that's the last straw with Tony, isn't it? And it goes as an accident. It just shows how ruthless Tony was. And I always thought that was quite just that line about you've got to define yourself, and it was that just sort of that defines Christopher. It was always his pursuit of trying to become this made man. I love these dynamics with Paulie, but he was never actually allowed to be the person he wanted to be, which is a struggle a lot of the characters go. You're looking at that Tony's character as well. It was like he always wanted to be outside of the map, maybe not outside the mafia, but he was longing for a life outside of the one he wanted, and that was a lot of the exchanges with Dr. Melfi. But yeah, he's probably my favorite character in any TV series.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. He's just I love Michael Imperioli, who plays him. Fantastic actor, great writer as well. He's in a lot of good films. He's written a lot of good films as well. Been a co-writer in a lot of good films. But yeah, like you're saying, again, he struggled with drugs. The fact that he was earlier on, he was one of the few people that would argue with Tony and question him in front of people. He was always having those little rows. Again, though, I love the exchanges with Paulie. They're in my favorite episode, centers around them, Pine Barrens. Yeah, and again, one of my favorite just exchanges is when they've got the guy in the boot and you get him out he's still alive. They make him dig his grave, and he shoots him. He runs off. He hits him with a spade and runs off. And then Tony they tell Tony what they've done, and Tony finds out about him, and he says on the phone, he says, he was in the he was in the Ministry for the Interior. He killed 10 Chechens. And he can't hear him up on the phone, and he goes, he was an interior decorator. He sold 12 Czechoslovakians. And Christopher goes, he's an interior decorator. He goes, really? His place looked like shit.
Shit, yeah.
You've got this dark sort of thing where these guys are basically trying to get a guy to dig his own grave and shot him in the head and are chasing him. And you've got these moments of comedy. And I think Michael Imperioli he's just amazing in that character. You proper buy into it. I like the contradiction. Again, you talk about he has these problems, he has these struggles with drugs, and you see him, he goes to NA, you know, he goes to 12-step program, something I've been to myself, and he it looks like he's getting there, and then he doesn't, and like you say, he relapses, and I think Tony admits it to Dr. Melfi after he kills him. He says he doesn't admit he's killed him, but he admits the relief. He says, "I'm relieved. You know, I can't keep pretending that I'm gutted because I'm." And if you notice, when this is just the writing in Sopranos, it's just on point. It's consistently fantastic. Tony keeps referring to the baby seat when he's talking about Christopher dying, and people are saying, "Oh, you know, it's a tragedy." Da, da, da. He keeps saying, "You know, the branch went through the car and went right through the baby seat. If the baby had been there, he'd have been dead."
Yeah.
People aren't getting it. People like just dismiss that, and that's the thing that he's like you say, he's had enough.
Yeah,
Could have died, and it's a bit of a metaphor in it that, you know, he could have led to Tony's downfall, and it's just fantastic. It's just fantastic writing, fantastic acting, and you know,
he's a great actor. Have you seen him in Basketball Diaries, one of his early films with Leonardo DiCaprio? He's got cancer. Really, really good in that, and obviously he's great in Goodfellas. But something that's quite telling about the Christopher Moltisanti character and how he was sort of viewed by the rest of the gang by the end of it is after his death, because Tony's not let on that he's actually killed him and it's in the car crash, but there's no real remorse, you know, amongst the rest of the gangs. And I know him and Paulie sort of had their ups and downs and stuff like that, but you'd expect, because he was a made man by that point, that there would be a lot more sort of sense of loss amongst the group, but he just sort of shown that everybody sort of come towards his tether, and it's like you sort of expected that fate, you know. You expected him to follow his missus, didn't you? To a tragic ending, unfortunately. When he goes to like the acting classes, and he's always sort of looking up to Tony, obviously with the loss of his father, and the bit where he does the James Dean scene, it's a little bit hammy, but you sort of, and he punches the guy. It's fucking, you know. But like you said, the comedy of Sopranos is again another reason of its brilliance. When you look at things that have come afterwards that are Mafia related, like Gomorrah. And I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. Gomorrah is just dark from the intro of the first episode until the very last one. It's just dark. Nothing, doesn't let up at all. But again, the Sopranos, because these people do have a laugh in their lives, they do bust each other's balls, so to speak.
Yeah, no, they do, and it is hilarious at times and dark and moving, and you give a shit about these characters. You know, when Christopher dies, again, it's not a similar feeling to the one with Bobby, where it's a tragedy in many ways with Bobby. I think the thing with Christopher when Tony kills him is the shock factor that Tony's killing, who essentially has been groomed as his heir throughout the series, throughout the show.
Yeah.
And the fact that Christopher's been there from the start. He's one of the main guys. And, you know, you feel that he's like, wow, Christopher Moltisanti's actually gone and Tony's killed him. And I was a little bit angry, you know. I was angry with Christopher that he couldn't get clean, he couldn't get off the drugs, couldn't get his act together. He had so many chances, and you can sort of see where Tony's coming from in many ways, because, you know, Tony with Adriana, you know, Christopher told Tony about Adriana, and the Adriana's death scene is one of the most sort of
that was hard.
With Silvio when he takes her out, literally, and but Tony stuck by him. Then, you know, he said there was a time when Junior wanted Christopher gone because he didn't trust him because of his drugs. Yeah, and Tony gave him another chance and took, you know, he said to go to rehab, and he just kept giving him these chances. And I think it was sort of soured when Tony started seeing the girl that Christopher started seeing the girl, the real estate agent that Tony had a thing for. Yeah. That sort of drove a little bit of a wedge between them that they never quite.
There was also the scene where Tony nearly got off with thing. He was only for the car crash. What I talked about, because Tony was in the car with I forgot her name,
Adriana. Yeah,
Adriana.
Again, he was going to kill him on here, Chris.
Yeah,
he turned up at the Bing with a gun, and then it was Tony Blundetto, played by Steve Buscemi, who's obviously cousins to them both, because they're all related. He convinced him otherwise, and they went and visited the doctor and convinced who convinced them that Adriana had a seatbelt on.
Yeah.
So because he thought she was giving him head. So yeah, it was. They had this such a up and down relationship, that ultimately, you know, it was fatal. It was fatal for Christopher anyway. And again, it's just the way it builds and the sort of the roller coaster and the top turns and the twists and turns of their relationship, and just when you think it's going to go one way, it goes the other, and it was just fascinating. I love the scenes with James Gandolfini and Michael Imperioli. They're just two great actors. Absolutely bounce off each other, and you saw that again. You saw the relationship, the way it grew, because he was a kid, wasn't he? Really, when it started.
Yeah.
Chris, and then obviously he has his own family, and he becomes a made guy, and then he becomes a capo, and obviously rises through the ranks. And you see all that, and you see the relationship with Tony and how it develops, and his problems with drugs, and it's just fantastic. It's believable. It's well written. It's multi-layered. It's everything you'd want from a television show and from a character in it, and you just can't fault it. Really, you can't fault that. And I think that Christopher Moltisanti will go down in history as one of the all-time great television characters.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just end him on his my favorite quote of his: "There's no chemical solution to a spiritual problem."
That's from NA. That, yeah, very good. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, it's good. That, yeah, that's what I mean as well. Not many programs. Don't want to go off tax here, but not many programs deal with that or show that 12-step and stuff. It was fascinating to see that from someone who's been there, to see that in a major television show like that, and dealt with in a pretty sort of appropriate
honest
way. Well. Yeah, honest way. I watched in The Wire. We see it in The Wire as well, don't we? We see 12-step meetings in The Wire, and I know it's different in America and Britain the way they are, but yeah, it was just interesting from someone who was at the time sort of going through similar stuff to see all that, and yeah, he handled it. It was handled in the right way. Next one, this guy, right? This is one of my favourite actors of all time. And I'm not just saying this. I absolutely love Frank Vincent. He's just an absolute diamond. Now, Frank Vincent plays probably the most... I don't know if evil's the right word, because everyone in Sopranos has the sort of the family side or the sympathetic side, but he is probably the most nasty one. It's Phil Leotardo. And he's just... I mean... Sometimes you can just enjoy a really nasty character, and Phil Leotardo is. And one of the main reasons I think I like him so much is because of Frank Vincent, who is an actor I've always admired. If you don't know who he is, he's a Scorsese favorite. He's in Casino. He's in Goodfellas as Billy Batts. He gets beat up in Goodfellas. Well, he gets murdered in Goodfellas. He's the guy
in it. Go and get your shoes. Go home and get your shoe shine box.
Shine box. Yeah, that's the one. And he's in Raging Bull as well. So he's in 3 of Scorsese's best films. He's also, I don't digress here a little bit, but he's also got the best cameo ever in any film ever for me in Do the Right Thing. He pops up in Do the Right Thing where they're spraying water with the hydrant, all the black kids in the neighborhood, and he's this Italian American in his Cadillac, and they soak it, and he kicks off, and honestly, if you can get a chance, just Google Frank Vincent Do the Right Thing. It's just a fucking brilliant, hilarious cameo. And it just shows you the acting chops on him because he's brilliant in it. It's like he's only in it for 2 minutes, and it's my favourite cameo ever. But going back to The Sopranos, Phil Leotardo, you see him go through a lot. Comes out of prison. He's ruthless. He's very loyal to Johnny Sack. And you see that, and he sort of does Johnny Sack's bidding and helps Johnny Sack get to where he needs to be. Then obviously when Johnny Sack gets locked up, he takes over, and you see him have that sort of struggle, that turmoil. He has the heart attack. Is he going to go one way? Is he going to go the other? You see the family side to him with his cousin, Lorraine Bracco's sister plays Vito's wife, and he has a sort of close relationship with Vito that obviously goes sour when it comes out that Vito's gay. And he has this very, very, again, it's keep using that word, but it's true, the tempestuous relationship with Tony, and the sort of the murder by Tony Blundetto of Phil Leotardo's brother just sets it sort of in motion, the chain of events that lead towards the end of the Sopranos. And he's just a fascinating character. And the thing is, with the sort of the themes and the characters that the Sopranos deals with, you're gonna get people like Phil who are pretty evil. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Pretty brutal. And it always shows you the softer side to some of these people in The Sopranos. And even though, like I said, Phil has got a bit of a softer side, you see his relationship with his grandkids or his nieces and nephews, and his wife, but he's brutal and he's ruthless, and he doesn't care. He's not sort of cowed by any sentimentality or anything like that. He's pretty sort of heartless, and we know that he did a lot of time in jail. He feels like he's owed something. He's a man's man, as he would say, and yeah, it's a fascinating watch to see him sort of become so prominent and then become the dominant force in the New York family. And him and Tony have this such a up and down relationship, and you never quite know how it's going to go. At one point, Tony's the dominant one. Tony, crashes. He threatens him and grabs him after he owes Tony money, and then it goes the other way where Tony's sort of, hiding out because Phil Leotardo's out to get him, and they have this war. But all through this, it's just wonderfully acted by Frank Vincent, and again, he's a sort of old school mafioso with this ruthless streak, and it's just brilliant acted, and you see him go through it, and the comedy, and you keep going back to that theme of the comedy. This is a guy who, even with all this going on, he's so brutal, he's so ruthless, it's so dark, a lot of the sort of the things that he does and speaks about, and his death is pretty horrific, but even that has elements of comedy. When the car runs over his head. And
hasn't he got his grandkids in the car as well at the time?
I think so, yeah. His wife has, yeah. She's got him in the and then there's that, and there's just so many little, just daft little things, like when he goes round to see Vito's wife, and Vito's been killed, and the thing is, he's killed him. Like, she don't know that, obviously. He's comforting her, and as he's comforting her, he's right hand man, or one of the guys that he's took with him, is watching telly, and there's like this bodybuilding show on the telly of all these men just in little like thongs posing like this, and he looks up and he goes, "Will you turn that off?" And it's hilarious. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's there comforting his widow after he's just murdered her husband for being gay, and this guy's watching sort of bodybuilders all oiled up posing. It's just madness. It's just hilarious. And I love Frank Vincent in this series. He was an actor, and it's sad when he passed away. But he's an actor that pops up in these films, these wonderful films, with sort of varying degrees of importance in terms of parts. Some of them were cameos, some of them were bigger. But to see him be given a role like this in The Sopranos, in one of the the greatest TV show of all time, given a role he could really get his teeth into, and he does it, and he's just fantastic in it. He just gets it absolutely spot on. And like all the Sopranos, there's times when you can sort of sympathise with Phil Leotardo. He loses his brother. He has done a lot of jail time. He does stay loyal to Johnny Sack. He does live by that old sort of mafioso code.
Yeah.
He talks about, being a man's man, not crying like a baby. You never tell, you never snitch. You do your time like a man and all that sort of stuff. But in the end, he just sort of unravels because of his anger, because he's so angry towards Tony and what's happened with his brother. It's sort of his undoing. And it's fascinating because the debate still rages on as to how The Sopranos ended. And even though we know Phil died, it's like, did Phil's family
still carry on?
Yeah, did they still get rid of Tony because what happened to Phil? And he's just one of the all-time great characters, played by a very, very underrated actor.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's a fantastic actor. Do you think that that's and even something might have uncovered on the writing is the reason that that Phil Leotardo is the way he is in terms of his mannerisms of being old school mafia, is because he's been in jail for so long, and he's sort of rooted in that maybe 1970s tradition of being a man's man. And then when he's come out, he's taken them morals and principles about how he's supposed to be. Whereas the likes of Tony and all that have grown up in a new America as such. You know what I mean? And that is where the contrast from, because I wouldn't have it. There's no way when you've been writing such complex storylines that David Chase is just going to purposely put this old school mafia stereotype in the last series of The Sopranos. It sort of makes sense that that'd be the case, and you can see the similar sort of things in Richie Aprile as well. He's another one that did a lot of jail time, and he comes out and he has that. So it's very much sort of old school versus new school. Again, when you look at the dynamics between Tony and the way that Junior Soprano wants to run things as well, there is always that sort of element of how you should be doing things through the ages. But Phil Leotardo, and we've got to talk about the Shah of Iran. Them fucking cocksuckers called me the Shah, right?
It's those little things, like, But have you seen the bit where he's giving a speech in the bar to all the kids?
Yeah.
Talking about the name, we were called Leonardo, and they changed us to Leotardo. And someone put, why did they do that? Because they're stupid. That's why. And it's just like, does anyone know what a Leonardo da Vinci is? He wrote the Da Vinci Code. No, and his wife kicks off. That's a terrible, sacrilegious book. It's just there's so many moments of comedy in the Sopranos mixed in with these sort of dark moments, these dark themes, and these sort of, in some cases, these horrific crimes. And I think the sort of the murder of Angelo, is it Angelo when they murder him and his brother murder him in his boot of his car, basically. I think his name's Angelo, the guy that was sort of he comes out of prison at the same time as Phil, and they murder him, and it's one of the most brutal murders in the film. Then the Vito murder as well, although it's off camera, you know what happens to him. And when Phil, and again, there's just little moments of genius in The Sopranos where he goes in his hotel room, Vito, and Phil Leotardo literally comes out of the closet, and then they kill him. It's just like, do you know what I mean? It's like it's so brilliant. It really is.
But you only get that when you look back at it. Do you know what I mean? Because you're that engrossed in the intensity of what's going to happen. Is that's sort of lost in you? But you can go back and watch The Sopranos and see little trinkets here and there, or Easter eggs, or what people fucking call them and stuff like that. But amazing.
It's so amazing, and it is. And I just absolutely adore Frank Vincent. I really do. Fantastic actor. He was, like I said, he died a few years ago, but he left behind such a fantastic canon of films and television roles, and he was I think he was a drummer as well. He had such a colourful career. He was a drummer in a band. Yeah, he was just there. I saw an interview with him once, and it's mad because he was like such a nice, happy guy who plays all these dark characters that you forget. Do you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like that. He wasn't like walking around with a scowl ready to kill everyone. He was just a nice, happy sort of musician who was obviously fantastic at acting, and managed to find roles that did him justice. And I'm so glad that they cast him as Phil Leotardo. Again, it's underrated, the casting in Sopranos. People think that David Chase just watched the Goodfellas and just went, I'll have him, him. And I know obviously Frank Vincent's in Goodfellas, but he always gets it right with the casting. And Frank Vincent, I'm so glad he's in it.
Well, speaking about casting decisions, the person I'm going to talk about next was originally supposed to be playing Carmela, but she'd already played a similar role in Goodfellas, so she wanted to try something else. And as Lorraine Bracco, is it Bracco? Lorraine Bracco?
Oh yeah, I'll have mate. Don't ask me about pronunciation. I'm as manky as you. I'm useless.
Yeah, who plays Dr. Melfi, and she was offered the role once by David Chase to sort of, it was a shoe-in for Carmela, and she said, I've already done that role. I want something a bit challenging, and she wants to be Dr. Melfi. And for me, the relationship between Tony and Dr. Melfi is what makes The Sopranos for me, because Dr. Melfi is his moral compass, where he goes to her for sort of justification for his actions, or to even get like advice in many ways. She's sort of like his consigliere, isn't she? In so many ways, to sort of see what should he be doing next, and just the exchanges. I mean, it's very bipolar, I think, how Tony's relationship with Dr. Melfi, because he either wants to love her, or he either wants to fuck her or kill her. He either hates her or he absolutely loves her. And the bit where he brings Carmela in because Carmela thinks he's having an affair, to go to the counselling session with him and stuff like that. That's absolutely brilliant. But some of my lines where he goes, what is it? I had a dream. I fucked your brains. I had a dream. I fucked your brains out right over that desk, and you loved it. She goes, whoa, well, you chucked that at me like a rock. And then,
do you know what? Do you know what I love? I love the one where he's kicked off with her, and there's a time he gets really angry, doesn't he? And I think he throws a table over, and then a few weeks later, whenever, he goes down to his old neighborhood, and this crackhead, he's showing AJ around, and this crackhead kicks off and waves a gun at him, and he tells her, he says, and this crack addict, he threatened me in front of my son, and I didn't snap. And she says, well, I just hope next time you can treat me with the same respect you treat a crackhead. And he says, all right, fair point. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, these little exchanges and these little gems. And obviously, with Lorraine Bracco, I mean, she's just a wonderful actress, and I'm glad she took the role of Dr. Melfi because, like you say, she did the sort of the Karen Hill in Goodfellas. It's a very similar role to Carmela, and it's good to see and James Gandolfini, who are almost in every scene together that she has, just bouncing off each other, in such a way. And I it's mad how you just get so emotionally involved with these characters, don't you? And the time when she gets attacked, on the stairwell, and I remember watching that. And there's a bit where she's with Tony and she starts breaking down, and I was fucking screaming at the telly.
Tell him,
because Tony's gonna that's the end of that.
You know what's up,
dead. And you wanted that guy dead. And I'm not being funny, but everyone, it's horrific what he did, and you want him gone. And I was like, just tell him. And that's the genius of Sopranos as well, because it's not always the most obvious thing and the thing you want to happen that happens. And in many ways, it's right she didn't, because she's not a murderer. She knew if she had what would have happened, even though that guy deserved it. So for those little moments, it's just brilliant, and she spends most of the series sat on a chair, and yet she's just amazing in it. And like you say, she's his moral compass, and it's quite funny that you talk about the ending of Sopranos, and did Tony die in the final scene, and does he live or does he die? And a lot of people look at the fact that she split up with him, essentially. She called it time as proof that it was the end of the road for him.
And that was a journey, wasn't it? That was like he needed counsel. But if you look at the beginning scene where he's looking at the ducks and how the family and all that, and how it needs to come to where they all fly away, and his whole thing is about either trying to keep his family, whether it's the Mafia family or his proper family, together. And then if you look at the beginning and the end they're all sat in the diner. It's a very complete sort of natural arc, isn't it, between that journey. But I love the bit where Tony starts falling for her, and then Dr. Melfi says, "Well, this is quite a common thing for patients to fall in love with their psychiatrists and stuff." And it sort of shows that, because everybody that she's so against Tony's type, because he's always falling for these lunatic gumars. Do you know what I mean? If outside of that office, he isn't attracted to anybody who's like Dr. Melfi. So it sort of shows that theory is absolutely correct. And I love the line where he's got about pussy. Let me just find the quote. Fucking hell. Where they go that? So who's your friend, Pussy? And Tony goes, I'm confused. Is Pussy your friend? Yeah, but that's the friend who almost got carried off by the ducks, right? When you say Pussy, my friend, when you say Pussy, do you mind my friend Pussy? Or do you mean Pussy? Whatever seems to be dominating your thoughts. I got Pussy on the brain. I always do.
It's just mad. Like,
he has no filter. He has no filter at all, Tony. The way when he talks to her at all, it's just fucking class.
She says she likens it's psychiatrists often been likened to childbirth, and he says it's more like taking a shit. Just little things like that,
it sounds like where AJ's going through his depressive stage, and she goes, it sounds like AJ's found existentialism, and then Tony goes, fucking internet. Which is so true.
Mate, if you see when you mentioned before he goes in with Carmela and they're arguing, and she goes, I can sense there's a lot of anger, and he says, you must have been top of your fucking class. It's so good. It's so good. And she's so good. And yeah, like the scenes with her and Gandolfini is just fucking gold. Seriously. And yeah, it could have been so sort of repetitive, or just like you say, a bit sort of cliched, their relationship, and it wasn't. You see it develop. You see the ups and downs. You see the sort of the trials and tribulations they have, the confliction. They both feel he's conflicted about seeing a psychiatrist. She's conflicted about treating someone she knows is in the mafia, and it shows. And you have these sort of intertwined, don't they? These peaks and troughs, and it's like, like you say, 1 minute he loves her, the next minute he's debating whether to have her, almost whether to kill her, and 1 minute she's quite happy, she feels like she's doing a good job, and that's like the Hippocratic oath or whatever. Another time she's like, I shouldn't be doing this, and how she reacts to it all. It's just fascinating, and I love the scenes as well with her and her psychiatrist is played by Peter Bogdanovich, the director. He plays Elliot, the psychiatrist she goes to see. And Peter Bogdanovich, you don't even know much about him, but he did like the Last Picture Show. And he had a load of flops in the sort of 70s. He was like the next big thing. He had a lot of flops and never quite got back to the top of the directing tree. He never quite got there again. But yeah, he's obviously pops up as an actor in this, and he's great. And the scenes I think every scene almost he's with her is just great. It's just fascinating to watch Lorraine Bracco do so much with this role. And like you say, it's the moments again of just comedy are just gold. They really are.
Yeah, brilliant.
From leads on nicely to the next one. From one sort of powerful, headstrong woman to another one. In Carmela Soprano, played by Edie Falco. Like you said, this role originally was going to go to Lorraine Bracco. It didn't. I'm glad it didn't, not just because Lorraine Bracco is fantastic as Dr. Melfi, but Edie Falco is great as Carmela. And like all Sopranos characters, there's different sides to Carmela. You see her loving, her family side, the fact that she tries to hold this family unit together. You know what I mean? She's obviously by and large, a very loyal wife. I know there's not completely, and we'll get to that in a minute. Loving mum, doting mum. She looks after the kids. She holds the house together. But she can have a sort of a dark side as well.
Oh, yeah,
The relationship developed with Furio. She has a sort of another dalliance with it. I think she has another dalliance with a decorator at one point who shits himself when he realizes who's her husband is.
As you would.
As you would, big time. Then she has sort of an affair with the teacher when her and Tony are split up.
The priest, as well as she started flirting with him.
Yeah, that's a bit of a weird one.
That's a bit of a weird one, that, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's a time as well when she wants the neighbour's sister to write a letter of recommendation for her daughter to get to Colombia, and she more or less threatens her. She goes round and sort of quite, sinister the way she does it. Do you know what I mean? It's quite good. And it shows that Carmela sort of will do anything for a family, almost, even like a little bit like Tony. She does have that dark streak, and you can see her sort of keeping up appearances with the wives and the other wives, and getting a little bit sort of jealous at times. She gets jealous when she sees Angie Bumpancero doing quite well on her own.
Yeah,
Gary's back, big pussy's widow. So she's just such a sort of fascinating character, Carmela, because she's not just this one-dimensional, mafia housewife who does as she's told, who watches her husband go and shag anything that moves, and who, doesn't bat an eyelid about it. She's very headstrong. She will stand up for herself. And one of my favourite scenes is when she goes to see a psychiatrist because Dr. Melfi, as you mentioned there, says, I can't. She goes to see Dr. Melfi on her own. Tony don't go with her. Dr. Melfi says, I can't treat her because obviously Tony's your husband. So I recommend my mentor. He's the best psychiatrist I've ever known. So you should go and see him. So she goes to see this sort of like elderly Jewish psychiatrist, and she's sort of making all these excuses for Tony, and she's telling him about Tony. And she says, she describes what he's about and the fact that he's sort of this criminal and he's going through a lot and he's depressed and he's a killer or whatever. And then she starts making excuses for him. Oh, he's a lovely, he's a family man and I love him and he's such a good man. And the psychiatrist just sort of says, he's a good man. You just told me he's a criminal. He's a depressed criminal who kills people. And it's just like, she's trying to justify it in herself. And she says to him, I can see what you're trying to tell me now. I need to put boundaries in. I need to sort of keep my distance. And he's saying, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you need to leave him. Otherwise you're just as bad as him. And ultimately she can't. She likes the lifestyle. She likes, she knows what Tony is and she's all right with it. The childhood sweetheart, she's always known what he's about. They always reference the fact that they got together or they knew each other from high school. And it is one of those relationships in The Sopranos that has its peaks and troughs, like everything. And at one point, in many ways, I remember when me and you were chatting once years ago about Sopranos, and for you, that was like the main storyline in one of the series was series 3, I think, where they split up by the end. And you said, I remember saying to you, oh, and you were like, oh, I can't believe they split up at the end. That was like you viewed as like the main bit, which I got because for many people it is. And you look at what goes on in that series. Yes, he has these wars with New York. He has these wars with his own family in terms of Junior and the other, and you know, Richie or whoever, Richie April or whatever. But the one sort of constant thread throughout all the Sopranos is his relationship with Carmela, Tony's relationship with Carmela, and the ups and downs that goes through, whether the marriage will survive.
Yeah.
And it's, again, you know, that scene at the end where they're all, well, 3 of them are sat there when Meadow walks in. And, you know, we'll get to that later, but it's fascinating that the sort of starts with the family and it ends with the family. And Edie Falco just absolutely nails it. She makes Carmela this fascinating character who's conflicted, but ultimately, you know, knows what Tony's about and is quite happy to go along with it. And you know, you sort of you get it. Do you know what I mean? There's never a point where you sort of think, well, why is she going along with this or why is she doing that? Because she's quite ambitious and driven in many ways, Carmela. You know, we see her putting money on the stock market. We see her with a house scheme that she wants to do. She even more or less says to Tony, you know, I'll let you back in the house if you fund my projects.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, comes to a deal and he's like, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's fascinating. And I love the dynamics. You know, you spoke about Dr. Melfi and Tony. I love the dynamics between Carmela and Tony. It's fantastic. And the way she is with the kids as well. You know, the trouble she has with AJ when Tony's not there and the trouble she has with Meadow as well. The whole thing is just superbly done, superbly acted by Edie Falco.
Yeah, she's like the rock that's trying to keep the household together, isn't she? I mean, and it would have been so easy again for it to be a mobster's wife tale. Do you know what I mean? Who just sort of goes along and stuff. I do love the scenes with Fiorio, and because she is falling for him. Do you know what I mean? You can actually see him falling, and you do see that sort of confliction. And the priest thing I thought was very, very strange. But one of my favorite, I think the weakest point I've seen Carmela in it is when Charmaine Bucco confronts her and says that, well, you know, I could have had Tona if I wanted to, that we were going out for, you know, before when you guys had split up in that. And I absolutely love Charmaine Bucco. She was I know there was a lot of attractive women in the Sopranos, but she was always the sort of, you know, So much that I actually put a tweet out and tagged her in, and she liked my tweet, and I was a very happy man for at least 2 weeks.
It's the most random story I've ever read.
I put like
me tweet, and it kept me going for a couple of weeks. I mean, fair play to you. You know, not arguing with you, but yeah, that's fascinating. She's in there. She's in the Irishman, isn't she?
Yeah. I'll just find her name now. Catherine Narducci.
There you go.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, she's another one. You know, I know we're not talking about her, but it's worth referencing. Not your typical. I know she's not a mafia wife, but not your typical housewife or wife in the sense that headstrong woman. You know,
you would not want to be. You would not want to be Artie Bucco, man. Fuck, she's fond of her, mate. Fuck me.
And it's like I love that about Sopranos. Yeah, because
you
know, these aren't sort of henpecked or little women who do as they're told.
No,
these are all the women in Sopranos. Pretty much all of them are very headstrong, very independent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Janice,
Carmela, Dr. Melfi, Charmaine, you know, Adriana, even she's got her own club.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's ultimately it's leads to a downfall, but she, you know, she's very sort of strong and independent in many ways. So yeah, you have that. You have that in Sopranos, and these aren't sort of secondary characters as well. In many ways, these play as much an important role as the male characters, and rightly so, because it's not just about the mafia family, it is about the family at home as well. And we see that throughout, you know, and even like Phil Leotardo, who I mentioned earlier, even him, he gets sort of shouted at by his wife at times. Like, you know, you need to sort out with Vito, you know, he's gonna go to hell. And he's like, I know.
The one woman who I don't know if dubbed my head in was wrong, but it was and it was Johnny Sack's wife.
Yeah,
who could have gone on the diet and stuff like that, and she was caught like just scoffing chocolate. But I mean, again, that sort of goes against the type of what you expect to sort of, because Johnny Sack seemed like quite a loyal, but I don't think you ever seen him have a gumar or anything like that, did you?
No.
He was devoted.
I'll get to him later. But yeah, you're right. And again, quite a fascinating character in the sense that a ruthless killer, but yeah, devoted to his wife.
Yeah.
Devoted to her.
My next one is fantastic. It's such a fascinating. Again, we'll talk about character arcs because every single character in Sopranos seems to have a story to tell. It's very much like a Dickens novel. If anyone's ever read it, every character in it has a beginning, middle, and end rather than popping in for a cameo. Is Mr. Magoo, Uncle Junior? One of the this is the best line in The Sopranos, and it's based off how good their Uncle June is at muff diving, and it's got Tony Soprano's in bed with Carmela, and it's all kicking off with Junior and all this, and it's going to war, and he turns around to Carmela and saying, "Cunnilingus and psychiatry brought us to this." So obviously, Junior's took his Gumar off down to Florida, and he's got quite a taste for going down south, and he's particularly good at it. And then she's getting her hair done, and then word spreads amongst everyone. And then Carmela pulls Tony up and it like, "Don't go on like you've ever done it." And we've seen Tony's face just because he can't go out that he actually likes going down on his wife.
He takes his hold on a birthday, doesn't it? He says, "Yeah." This just makes it even better. Don't go saying it's like once a year, Tony, on my birthday. I don't think it's it's like, well, yeah, mate, you're right. That is the all-time best line of The Sopranos, hands down. Like you say, mate, it is. And Dominic Cini's again, fucking brilliant actor, and yeah, the thing with that, the sort of line when he finds out about Tony seeing a psychiatrist, and it all starts. I mean, that sort of leads to everything, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, the unraveling that.
Yeah, and I love it with Junior, where he loses his temper and he just gets annoyed. I love it when he gets annoyed with Bobby Baccalieri, and it's like when he sells Mikey Palmisi. He said,
I hated Mikey Palmisi. He was like, I fucking hated him.
Yeah, no, he was. And he makes laugh because he goes after the muff diving thing, where they're in the changing rooms after the golf game, and he said he's seen a psychiatrist, and Mikey Palmisi goes, "I fucking knew it," and he goes, "No, you fucking didn't. I just told you." Just snaps like that.
Yeah,
and it's like you can see he has this thing, Junior, where he's like constantly annoyed. Yeah. And then he has that, obviously, the sort of dementia and stuff kicks in. And
the acting in that is brilliant. How he falls into dementia and the sort of, it isn't like a overnight thing, and it just shows the acting skills for him to do it, and just like it's so gradual. Do you know what I mean? You sort of see little trinkets of it coming up when he's losing memory with conversations with Bobby, and then the ending when it brings a tear to your eye when Tony sort of sees him, and I think it's in the second to last episode of The Sopranos, and he's in the hospital, and he's trying to remind Junior of what, like, you, my uncle, you and your brother ran New Jersey, and then he sums up. He goes, "Well, that's nice," and then Tony has a tear to his eye and walks off.
The scene that just fucking does you, and this shows you the genius of The Sopranos. Again, it's similar to that one. Is when Junior keeps mentioning about the fact that Tony didn't make the varsity team, and he keeps repeating himself, and it turns out, he's not well, and then Tony goes right to see him, and he goes, you might be repeating yourself because you're not well, and he says, "But do you have to keep saying nasty things?" He's like, "Don't you love me?" He says that,
yeah,
and this is why Dominic Cini is just absolutely fucking brilliant as an actor. He's top class. He's watching this television show, and you can see he starts crying, doesn't he? And he's like, it captures everything there, that this Junior is a proud man. And, they do have this loving relationship, Tony and Junior. It is weird because obviously at one point he tries to kill him, but, there is love there, but there's that pride and that stubbornness. And it's unbelievable. You talk about acting behind the eyeballs. He just nails it. And it's so moving. And it's like that scene you spoke about. It sort of does leave a lump in your throat. And that's what The Sopranos can do, man. It just takes you through all them emotions with these guys. And with Junior, there's times when I felt sorry for him because he was sort of like, you know...
He's undermined, wasn't he?
Yeah,
like,
I think it's Silvio call him, like, do you think he's upset because he's Jerry Jerkoff or whatever? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you pretend that he's the leader, but he's not really, is he? Just in name.
Because he's there for the front for the feds, so everybody else can start. And then when he finds out about that, and then his relationship with Olivia as well. When Olivia starts, I mean, she's a fucking. We talk about strong women. Jesus Christ, you wouldn't want her as your mum. The way she started whispering in his ear and stuff like that. But it's interesting when you look at the relationship between Christopher and Tony, and the way Christopher sort of idolized and wanted Tony to accept him. Very similar to the way Tony had lost his dad. And, you know, with Junior as well, there is still that sort of one that you want your elder person, your uncle there to try and look after you and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just absolutely brilliant performance, absolutely throughout. A bit like and he was funny as well. I always likened him to like a gangster Larry David.
Well, I mean, there's one of those moments as well, anyway, the two collide. You see where he sees Larry David he sees Curb Your Enthusiasm, doesn't he, on the telly? You remember that scene? His dementia's settling in, and he sees Curb Your Enthusiasm on the telly, and he thinks it's him and Bobby. You don't remember? And he says, "Is that what the fuck is?" He goes, "But again, he's fucking brilliant." He goes, "The fuck is this? Is this me and Bobby? Is that my trial?" And the other guy that helps out, his name escapes me, Merv, I think his name is, or whatever. No, I can't remember actually his name, but he's there, and he goes, "What the hell are you talking about? It's a television program, and it's Curb Your Enthusiasm." But he thinks it's him because he's going. Yeah. But you know that moment it's Larry David, and like you said, he's like a Larry David, and at one point he sees Larry David on the telly and thinks it's him. But yeah, I mean, like you say, just fantastic acting. A real art. You see him go through it all. He wants to be boss, then he is boss, but not really. Then he's, he's under sort of the house arrest. Then he's trial. Then cancer. And then
prison as well.
Prison, and then finally dementia. He goes through a lot. And as with all the Sopranos characters, it's just superbly acted by Dominic Chianese, someone who been around for a long time, in the Godfather 2, I think, as well. And he brings that sort of gravitas to that role and that old school sort of venerable acting ability there, and he's just he carries it off brilliantly. And it's always a weird one with Junior because there's a part of you that you don't really like him because of the way he is, and the fact that he's he can be a bit hot-headed, a bit stubborn, and he's old school, and you think it's Tony, just get out of the fucking way. Almost.
You're rooting for Tony, aren't you? Always. Yeah, so you start to see him as the enemy in some ways, but then you remember that.
Oh, hello. If you froze that, sorry, you think you froze for a sec there, mate. I think you're back now. But yeah, it is one of those with Junior. Again, it's like all the Sopranos. The characters are just so well rounded. They're not. It's not easy to just go pigeonhole and go, well, he's a good guy or he's a bad guy. They're all ostensibly bad guys in the fucking Mafia. But there's endearing parts of them, and there's reasons that you root for him or feel sorry for him, including with Junior. There's times when it is sad when what happens to him. The bit where he gets beat up in the off the young lad in the home. It's that's quite sad and stuff like that. But yeah. Just that even that episode where leading up to that, where he's still trying to be the gangster. He has the card game, doesn't he? Where sweets are given out for and he writes. I mean, it makes me laugh where he writes a letter to Dick Cheney because Dick Cheney shot someone. Do you remember when Dick Cheney shot someone hunting? Do you remember that?
No,
Dick Cheney, the vice president. He accidentally shot his mate when they were out hunting. And then obviously Junior's shot Tony, and so he writes a letter to him. He gets this lad to write a letter to him and saying, you know what it's like to shoot someone accidentally. So it's just mad. It's just crackers because it's like it's sort of real life and art crossing over. But yeah, fantastic actor as always, and it was fitting that Junior was in it all the way through.
Yeah,
I mean, because it is a lot of the Sopranos is about him and Tony in it, and that's what drives a lot of the series, just like him and Tony and Carmela and Tony and Melfi and Tony and Jimmy.
It's hard. It's hard to take any of the sort of major players in the Sopranos out of the Sopranos and it not falling to pieces. They're very much like a house of cards with Tony at the top, but they all sort of play such a fundamental part to the overall story.
No, you're right, they do. And like you say, you couldn't take that away. I don't think you could have took that away sort of earlier on. It needed to be like it was sort of all the way through, really, didn't it? Because it was such a major part of it. It would have felt wrong if sort of halfway through the series, Junior just died or whatever, or, you didn't hear him anymore. You always needed that. And like I said to you before, the relationship he had with Bobby was just hilarious. And yet it ultimately became very sad as he lost his faculties and just handled in the right way as well. Because I know I spoke about it at times when it's funny, but ultimately it's quite moving and tragic.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
You mentioned him earlier, my penultimate character, Jonathan Sacrimoni, who is just, one of the sort of most fascinating characters in the Sopranos, because you talk about these characters not being sort of one-dimensional, having these different sides to them, and Johnny Sack just epitomizes that. He's played by Vincent Curatola, if I pronounced that right. Forgive me if I'm not. But Johnny Sack is such a contradiction. He's very loyal to. At first, he's very loyal to Carmine and Lupatazzi. He's his right-hand man, his underboss. Seems very loyal to him. Then he sort of turns on him. He's very devoted to his wife. His wife's obviously Rubenesque, he describes her, because she's obese, basically. But he's very loyal to her. Again, I think you mentioned, don't think he's got a girlfriend. It doesn't look like he's got a Gumar. He just seems to be with her. Devoted to his kids. But there's a real sort of ruthless streak in there. You see some of the things he does when he's fighting for the sort of to become head of the family against Carmine's son. I mean, he's fucking brutal. He's ruthless. The killing of Lorraine, he orders that killing, which is sort of, again, it sums up the Sopranos. She's murdered. It's fucking brutal, but the guy's whipping her with a towel as she runs across the thing. It's like there's that sort of almost dark humor in the brutality. It's mad. But yeah, I mean, I love the character Johnny Sack, and there's so many different sort of arcs and different storylines that Johnny's involved in. But the one that really fascinated me and one that I think sort of sums him up was the bit where Ralph takes the piss and makes a joke about Ginny Sack's weight. And then it gets back to, again, it sums up Johnny Sack, because Johnny Sack's sort of keeping Paulie on his side and chatting to Paulie. He finds out about it, but he can't admit why he's found out about it, because he's not meant to be talking to Paulie. He's sort of playing both sides of that one. But he's fuming, and then he wants to kill Ralph because he's my wife's honor, as he says. We're talking about my wife's honor. And I tell you what, and this is why we'll get to Gandolfini later, but this is why I love fucking Gandolfini. The scene where Tony says, what's the problem sort of thing with you and Ralph? And then Johnny Sack tells a joke, and he said she had a 100-pound mole removed from her ass. And you can just see enough in Tony that he's stifling a smirk. Do you know what I mean? Gandolfini does it brilliantly, because you can just see him sort of go, I can't do it. I'm not as good an actor. But there's almost a smirk there. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's fighting not to just sort of go, because what I mean? It's like vitally, it doesn't. It's fucking brilliant. But Johnny Sack there, he loses his head. He's very hot-headed, so he does have that ruthless streak. And the other scene that sort of art that I loved was towards the end, when he's it's quite sad. He gets cancer, and you see him sort of still holding on, hoping that he's going to survive. And I think it's just one episode that deals with it, really. He sort of gets cancer and dies in one episode. And he, one of the orderlies in the prison is an ex-cancer doctor or an ex-doctor, and he starts believing him when he says he's going to make it, which is really tragic. But yeah, he's just a fascinating character, and his relationship with the likes of Carmine, with the likes of Tony, with the likes of his wife, Ginny, just makes him a really sort of one of the Sopranos' most interesting people.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think in that scene with the orderly, isn't it, where he asks for a cigarette or is smoking, and he's got the he's got all the ventilator system and stuff like that. But yeah, he's a absolutely brilliant character, really good badder. Who was it that drove the when he bought the new house and he drove the car on the grass?
That was Paulie Walnuts, and that was Christopher did it. No, it's Christopher's house, sorry. And Paulie did it because Christopher threw Paulie Jr. out the window.
I thought it was Johnny Sacks and getting the Sopranos wrong.
No, because Johnny Sack moved to New Jersey, doesn't
he? Yeah. But well, that sort of balls up makes a segue to my next. I'm going to do 2 on the bounce because we'll do Tony last because I think that's only fitting for the king. But my next one will go with the person who made the joke about the £100 mole on Jenny Sack's ass. And I know you were saying Phil Leotardo was a great baddie, but for me, Ralph, and especially because it came within Tony's own family, he's just fucking hilarious as a badder. He really, really is. He's evil, isn't he? He doesn't, even his jokes and stuff.
I'm at my mum's and out, my brother's there. We're just doing a Sopranos podcast. Who's your favourite Sopranos character, Liam? Silvio Dante, our kids just come in and said he's his favourite.
He doesn't make the list either way, so.
Sorry,
thanks for the cameo. Top 11. Yeah. So I was saying the
coffee too, top man.
Nice one.
Sorry, Scotty, to interrupt you. No, we've all piled up Mum's house because she's not here.
Not having a Silvio.
He made number 11, Silvio.
Yeah. Well, have you got a spare pair of keys at your mum's house? It looks like sanctuary for the lost and unloved.
Yeah. What's how you getting around there?
Yeah. We'll do a live next time from your mum's house. Anyway,
go on, Ralph.
So Ralph, I just think he's just evil throughout the relationship with Janice. And I always think that with Janice, Tony never clocked onto it, but you should know whoever Janice is shagging is usually coming for the crown. You know, whoever Janice is in bed with, that was always a given. But the fallout about when Ralph does the gladiator speech that he does in the strip club, brutal. And then how he kills the stripper girlfriend of his, again, brutal. And then as fate would have it, he meets a tragic ending. And I don't think there's a better fight scene in The Sopranos than Tony versus Ralph in the kitchen after they're talking about him burning the horse. Pyomai is it that is burnt, and then Tony just absolutely kills him. And then one of my favorite scenes with Ralph is when Ralph's brown bread, and then Tony's come in, not Tony, Chris Moltisanti's been called around. He's high on skag, and fucking Tony's got him to chop him up, and he's there in the bath, and then fucking he's gone to pull his head off to pull his hair to chop his head off, and he's got a fucking wig, and then Chris's face like.
So I mean, it's so dark in it, the humour. But
Ralph for me was he was just a fascinating bad guy, and then also Paulie Walnuts, and he's a massive fan's favourite, and I always struggle with Paulie because I always thought if anyone was a bit of a caricature in The Sopranos, it was probably Paulie. But again, he has the relationship with him and Chris Moltisanti, and you already spoke about the Pine Barrens. Pine Barrens. That's probably one of the best episodes, and they say where he loses his shoe in the snow and stuff like that. But I also loved about the character of Paulie is he's such a proud Italian, and when it's like Christopher Columbus Day, or when he's talking about how Americans have appropriated cappuccino, goes like, look at this, espressos, cappuccinos, this was ours, pizzas, they're fucking stealing everything from us. And then when he goes over to Italy thinking that he's going to be embraced by all the locals as an Italian-American, and he says, buongiorno, and they'll look at him like some fucking lunatic with his silver-tipped wings.
You see when they sit down with the Mafia family in Italy, and he keeps reminding Tony about the food. Tony, have you tried this? Tony, have you seen this? And he's like, what the fuck's the matter with you? We're trying to have a meeting here. He's just so giddy. But I love
that. Was him.
Go on.
Yeah, but sorry. But that was the thing about Paulie throughout. He was always loyal, whether it was loyal to being Italian, and he'd always try and please so much. He was always loyal to Tony, despite having conflicts and stuff like that. The stuff with not Richie Aprile, Johnny Sacks, like you were talking about. You always wondered whether he was going to go again there, but it was also from when he's like his military background, so he was very sort of loyal to the captain and stuff like that. So he always had that throughout. And I think that Paulie was the only main player that had actually had mafia ties in real life, because he served the 20-month in prison. And he's got like a charge sheet with like 18 different offences on it. Obviously, you can bring that to the role. But I know he's a massive fan's favourite. But when I first watched The Sopranos, I've watched it umpteen times since. He was the one that I really sort of struggled to get along with. So between him and Ralph, we will make up my last two. And a quick shout out for Silvio as well, for your kid.
There you go. Silvio got a shout out, Lee. You'll be happy to know. No, I love Paul. I love Ralph. Ralph's one of my favourites. It's weird, isn't it? Because, like you mentioned there with Pio Mai, and when Tony never forgave Ralph for killing that girl, Tracy, I think her name is.
Yeah.
And even when he kills Ralph because of the horse, if you listen to the dialogue and he says she was a beautiful creature and you killed her.
Yeah.
Who's he talking about there? Do you know what I mean? Is he talking about the horse or is he talking about the girl? Because he sees a bit. There's the bit where he looks at Meadow and he sees Meadow and the girl are the same age, and he has that sort of fatherly instinct with her. So I think that there's that element that plays a part in it as well. And like you said, I think it's Tony Soprano who plays Paulie Walnuts. There's a line near the end when he says, "I was around when the Columbos were going at it in the 70s, and I survived by the skin of my nuts." And a lot of people say that's true. He was in real life, like involved in that in the 70s with the Columbos. So he's not just playing a role, or he is playing a role, but he's drawing on his life experience.
Yeah,
he was sort of involved, because a lot of them weren't. People look at Gandolfini, and I'll get to him in a minute as my last one, but he was a theatre actor. A lot of he was I don't know if you saw you were on Joe Rogan the other week, Robert Shapiro and Michael
seen it. Yeah,
and he was saying he wasn't from that background. James Gandolfini, he was from New Jersey, but he wasn't like he wasn't around that lifestyle at all. Do you know what I mean?
People presume because of the surname of being an Italian and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with you.
So well, but with Tony Soprano, he was from that background. He did have those bit part roles in the likes of films like Goodfellas, playing a mafia sort of hood, and yeah, he was given this big role, and with Paulie again, it's what you see with the Sopranos is the dark and the light and the funny and the sort of the brutal. But yeah, you look at Pine Barrens, my favorite episode. He's amazing in that. I love it when you hear Bobby, he starts shooting his shoe, doesn't he? He loses his shoe and he starts shooting it, and then Bobby hears him, so Bobby fires his rifle, and then Paulie starts waving like there's an helicopter there. Do you know? He's like, "Oh man," and because he's got them like grey tips and his hair's all like messed up. Do you know what I mean? It's just such a funny scene. Yeah, it's so like dark as well. Yeah, I think those two characters, like you say, you can see why they're popular. It just sums up Sopranos. You've got the guys who are evil in many ways. Do you know what I mean? Like Ralph beats a girl to death because she insulted him, and she's carrying his child, perhaps. And that you don't get much darker than that. And then Paulie, who's got, they say he's killed like dozens of people. I love the scene where he goes. If you see where he goes to the clairvoyant,
the psychic,
and he starts seeing the people that he's, including Mikey Palmisi, doesn't he? And Paulie picks up the chair and says, fucking voodoo shit.
When we're talking about like character arcs and stuff, I forgot about the line where where Paulie's mother isn't really his mother.
Yeah, is that he loses
right at the end, anyway, where he figures that out as well. So there's another interesting sort of twist on that character there.
And again, though, he ends up back with her, doesn't he? He sits with her. They just have a scene where he goes out and just sits with her. They don't speak, and they've made up. And again, he's very loyal, very childlike devotion to Tony. He has the Napoleon's picture in his house. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of weird. Not weird is not the right way to describe it, because human nature is like that. I mean, basically, this guy's a fucking sociopath. I mean, he's going around killing people like left, right, and center. Yet he's absolutely devoted to his mum or his stepmom, or whatever you want to call her. Devoted to Tony. Yeah, he's ruthless and will happily murder someone. I mean, you know, he's the one that offers to kill Big Pussy when it looks like Big Pussy's a grass. He's the one that says, you know, if it's him, I'll do it. You know, you comes with the territory that you don't have to do it. That's one of the perks of you being the boss. So I'll do it.
Yeah, man.
And you know, it rings true, doesn't it? You can totally believe that he's capable of that. And I think again, it shows it. And yeah, great actor and a great character, and both of them, Ralph and Paulie.
Go on, shoot.
Finally, the last one. What's the song? Are you going to save the best to last? I mean, what can you say about Tony Soprano and James Gandolfini? Just the greatest television actor of all time and the greatest television character of all time. The Sopranos wouldn't have worked at all if you didn't 100% buy into Tony, if you didn't care about Tony, if you didn't believe that this guy who was the head of a New Jersey family, that a member of the Mafia, could be the type of guy who was devoted to his family, could be the type of guy that is almost in tears when ducklings come into his pool. Yeah, with Gandolfini, that's all believable. And you see this guy go through so many emotions. You see him go through so many sort of twists and turns. And, you know, you talk about a real arc. I mean, he sort of starts off as this guy who's a young man in the Mafia, trying to keep his uncle happy and trying to sort of rise and become the boss. So becoming a boss and all the problems that comes with it, his marriage unraveling, having to deal with that, having to deal with wars with other families. All the time, he's got this illness hanging over him of panic attacks that he can't get rid of. So he's seen a psychiatrist. I mean, when I talk about Tony Soprano, the writing's fantastic, the character's fantastic, but for me, it's just about Gandolfini, man. He's just fucking different class. I mean, me and you've spoken on previous podcasts about, I think Steve Van Zandt, who plays Silvio at one point, was up for the role. There was talk of Pacino, I think, was another one who was linked with it, which wouldn't have worked at all. Or maybe not Pacino, but one of those type of actors who played Mafia sort of people, sort of a Pacino type rather than Pacino, sorry, who'd played lots of Mafia types. And Gandolfini hadn't really done that. I think he played like a heavy in True Romance, but he wasn't renowned for being a sort of a gangster type actor. He'd done a lot of his best work on the stage, and he just nails it. He carries the entire series, really, the entire show. And it's like, you know, when you talk about all the characters we've talked about, you talk about the writing, talk about how the sort of the plot and everything, and how great it is. It all just leads back to Gandolfini and how he makes you just root for Tony throughout it all, even when Tony does things that you don't agree with. Even though this is a guy that, you know, he is unfaithful to his wife who's devoted to him. You know, he is brutal. He kills people himself. He strangles someone to death in the first series. You know, he beats Ralph to death ostensibly over a horse. You know, we see him kill people. We see him, you know, he shoots Chucky Signore. He does a lot of murders during the course of this show, and he makes some mistakes that could cost him. And yet you're always rooting for him. You're always behind him, and you always sort of want him to come out of the other side of it. Do you know what I mean? You always take his side.
Yeah,
that's just down a lot. He's down to the acting in Gandolfini, and it's fascinating because that last scene where he's in the diner with his family and you see Meadow Park in the car, it's been analysed over and over again, and I think there's clues throughout the series if you watch it that, for me, I think that's the end of him. I do. I think he dies in that scene. I think the guy at the bar who we see go to the toilet shoots him.
So I see, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point of Meadow parking the car, because had she been sat there, that wouldn't have happened. And I think if you watch the scene, it's been dissected loads of times. You'll see how it's set up. You see, It kind of makes sense. I mean, it's open to interpretation. David Chase has never really, he's given signals, but he's never fully given it away.
He knows, man, doesn't he? He knows one way or another, obviously.
But the way it's shot, it looks like it's the end of it. But, you know, he's in it from start to finish, obviously. We see there's some things, again, you know, you mentioned it kills Christopher, who was his protege and who was his nephew and he loved. And yet, even after all this, even after all those things he's done, you still want him to come out of it. Do you know what I mean? You still sort of root for it. And a lot of it is the writing and the humour and all the other stuff. But for me, you've just got it in the hands of an absolute master in Gandolfini who's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can have all the greatest writing you want in the world, but if you haven't got anything anyone that can sort of carry them lines and that storyline, and like you said, the little, a lot of the times it isn't just the the dialogue, but it's the facial expressions. It's like when you were talking before about the smirk with Johnny Sacks that he can do, but the way that he sort of, or the aggression and his ability to lose his fucking rag like that, like Melfi or stuff like, or be the sort of, when he knows he's fucked up to Carmela and he's trying to be the meek husband and stuff like that. There's just so many different layers to the character and or to his acting skills. But ultimately, that he can be able to make you have sympathy with a sociopath is just genius. Just because, like you said, there's no way on earth the charge sheet against him. Like if he got to the pearly gates and they were going through his list of what he'd done to get in. Do you know, you know what I mean? Fucking hell. St. Peter would be there for a long, long time reading through that. I always loved his relationship with his Gumas as well. Like when he was shagging the Russian one at the beginning and stuff earlier on, and then he was always attracted to flames, wasn't he? There were always sort of lunatics, and the one that killed herself, the drug addict with that was Chrissy Moltisanti's love interest for a while. Didn't he have sex with his Junior's or Olivia's nurse, the one with the one leg?
One-legged Russian, yeah.
One-legged Russian.
That's what got back to Carmela. That's what caused all the shit because the other Russian found out.
And they were cousins, weren't they?
Yeah, grassed him up. So yeah, you're right. He was. There's like the I think it's Annabella Sciorra who plays the woman who kills herself when he goes out there. And Melfi calls it crazy love. I can't remember the term. She uses the French for something amor. What is it? I can't remember. But yeah, it is. He's attracted to these crazy women, these hot-headed women. And you know, it's a trait that keeps on going. It keeps on going. He can't help himself. But despite all that, and it sounds crazy to say, despite him killing loads of people, and despite him cheating on his wife constantly, and despite him being like, you know, that his family, his mafia family, you just fucking root for him, man. You just want him to, you want him to do okay, because it sounds crazy, but you know, he is likable. Do you know what I mean? There's something about Tony, like the thing with the birds and the ducks and how emotionally gets in his family, like, you know,
gentle and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you don't expect.
I mean, I can't wait to see. Is it the Saints of Newark?
Saints of Newark, yeah.
Yeah, with his son playing that as well, and that's gonna fucking bring a tear to anyone's eye. Gandolfini's son playing young Tony Soprano, Jesus wept. I can't think of anything more fitting. But when you see the flashbacks and you see how his dad was with him, and you know, he's quite an accepting guy, Tony. He's quite intelligent as well. You know, he says, you know, I just sort of went with the family business.
Yeah.
Didn't have any sort of independent thought. I just did what, you know, my family did. And the scenes we spoke about with Junior, you know, Don't You Love Me? Things like that. This is a guy that's got so many different sides to him. And he's, you know, he does have a heart and he, you know, there is a softer side to him. But ultimately, he is ruthless and he has to be. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that is the sort of thing that probably is his undoing. I know it's open to debate, but probably is Tony's undoing. That he, you know, he is ruthless and he goes to war with the New York family, and people may disagree, but I think that's what makes him brings about his demise. But regardless of that, you know, you're just talking about one of the all-time great television characters with one of the great actors doing it. And me and you spoke about Gandolfini before, and you know, if you just think he's Tony Soprano, he's not. Go and check out his films as well, especially towards the end of his career. The likes of The Drop, Enough Said, those types of films. He's fantastic in it, but he'll always be renowned as Tony Soprano, and rightly so, because it's the dream fucking role in it, and he's the dream actor for it.
Completely agree. Tony Soprano, the greatest character in the greatest series of all time. I've been Scotty. That's been Motty. Let us know what your favourite part of The Sopranos is, favourite quotes, favourite characters. We'll be back very soon. Thanks a lot for sharing, commenting, and liking and stuff. Tell your mates. We'll be back for an international episode very, very soon, as I am off to Godfatherland to go back and see where Michael Corleone is from. Oh, Corleone.
That's dedication.
No Perlo t-shirt on them, even though he's from
That's
Turin.
Dedication, that, mate. Yeah. You know what I mean? You said you wanted to do a Godfather episode, so you're going to go over to Corleone. I was like, Scotty, that's fucking above and beyond, mate. Do you know what I mean? Don't get it on other YouTube channels, do you?
No, but I'm hoping I can declare it on tax. Right, we shall see you very, very soon.